Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel for your second video of the day. Earlier on, we had a news video. This is a Chelsea tier list. We're going to take a look at all of the Chelsea players currently in the first team squad, not including loanees who can come back for next season. And we're going to take a little look and talk about whether or not these players are actually going to be here next season. At the moment, Chelsea are winning, but there is this very, very strong sense that we are on the verge, potentially, of a collapse because performances aren't good. We're not looking good going forward. Solid at the back, yes, and we're scraping by games by not playing very well. At this point in the season where we've just won a trophy, we've got another cup final at the weekend, we keep winning, but people are not happy. This is the perfect time to do this tier list video. You guys can let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with the position I've put all of these players in? The four tiers that we've got are the top one, build around, as in like these guys cannot leave, they will not leave, and we need to look at ways to actually get the best out of them because these are the best players in the club. The second tier is not leaving. These players, they might not be the most important or the most fundamental to said system or Chelsea's progress, but quality players, Chelsea players, we're going to see them stay at the club. Tier 3 is under threat. These are the players who right now might not be playing the best, but maybe there's got to be a way where we keep some of them, but then some might have to move on to replace them with either better or more suitable players. And then Tier 4 is time to go. These players have had enough now, or we've had enough, or I've had enough as the case may be, and it's time to move on. We're going to do it in a bit of a random order. It's mostly alphabetical, but then some players it isn't. But we begin with Kepa Arrizabalaga, and he's going straight into the not leaving category for me. This is a tough one because technically it could be tier 4, it could be time to go. But I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see Kepa leave the club. His statistics this season when he's played in for Bendy are fantastic. And the sad reality of the situation is Kepa is too good to be a number 2 at Chelsea. Kepa probably deserves to go to another big club as the first choice goalkeeper. So a lot of the way I do my videos when it comes to like previews or opinions, I try and base a lot of it on realism. But at the same time, in this situation, this is what I would love to see. If Kepa was happy to not be number 1 because we've got Edouard Mendy and stay at Chelsea, I'd be absolutely delighted. We move into Azpilicueta. Now Azpi has been a cornerstone of Chelsea Football Club ever since John Terry left. Azpi took over as captain. Even before John Terry left, Azpilicueta came in for £7 million and has arguably been Chelsea's best value ever signing. You can say Thiago Silva on a free as well, but the amount of years we've got out of Azpi, he's now our captain, Champions League winner, has won everything there is to win at the club. You would say that you would want him to stay, absolutely, but because of the contract situation, he's under threat. He's in tier number 3. There is the offer from Barcelona. They've offered him a 2-year contract with the possibility of an extension plus 1. It's far longer and far better of a contract than Chelsea would currently be willing to offer because we don't offer players over the age of 30 big long-term deals. It's just the nature of the beast. Azpi goes in to tier number 3. Tier number 4 gets its first entry with Ross Barkley. Ross Barkley, unfortunately, is just never really kicked on at Chelsea. At Everton, we saw moments of brilliance. We saw moments where he would carry the Merseyside Blues, as it says on Pro Evo or whatever they used to be called. Everton, Ross Barkley, when we sign him for 15 million, you just think maybe if he can get even close to some of that best form, Chelsea got a bargain player here, and maybe it's one that we bring in and then we look at the sell-on value for the future. Unfortunately, because Ross Barkley's not been playing enough, he's not been playing well enough when he's played, Chelsea really have kind of wasted this one. And I do think that it is time for Ross Barkley to go. We move into Bettinelli. We're going to stick him in tier number 2. He seems very happy to be third choice keeper at Chelsea. It's difficult for him to even, I guess, consider fighting for the number 1 spot because the 2 at the top is A, the best goalie in the world right now, Edouard Mendy, and B, absolutely the best number 2 in Kepa. So Bettinelli is, at the moment, we see him in videos around the Chelsea dressing room and at training, and he blends very well with the rest of the team, which is fantastic. So Bettinelli not leaving. He can stay as the number 3. We move into Trevor Chalobah. Trevor Chalobah has broken into the first team this season, has become a very, very useful player for Chelsea. He can fill in a defensive midfield position, can play centre-back, scoring goals as well. It's been a brilliant first year for Trev. I wouldn't say it yet he's up there as being the most influential player in the dressing room or the most even influential defender, but he goes into tier number 2. Trevor Chalobah not leaving, signed a big new contract too, delighted for him, and he's going to be a defender at Chelsea for many years to come. We move into the first member of tier 1, Ben Chilwell. We've seen this season just how important Ben Chilwell is to the way that Chelsea play, the system that Thomas Tuchel has implemented with the 3-5-2 that was so fruitful, so full of greatness from Chelsea at the beginning of this season. When Ben Chilwell was injured, it was the catalyst for, I guess you could say, the attacking capitulation that we've witnessed as Chelsea fans, where we look like a team that don't know what we're doing going forward. The build-up is so slow. There isn't an overload on the wings where we actually get so many players forward that the ball, of course, is going to make it into the box at some point. Ben Chilwell, I think, was playing the best football of his career just before that injury, and I think Chelsea will have to build the team around someone like Chilwell for the future. He goes into tier number 1. Christensen. Again, the contract scenario with Christensen, I think for me, it's more frustrating than Rudiger not signing. Because I think Rudiger has been that good that when we see him complain about a lack of ambition with the wage from Chelsea, we can justify it. With Christensen, I feel as though, as Eunice would say, it's been a bit more nitty-gritty. There's been a few more little indecision maybe. I don't know what he wants. Does he even know what he wants? Changed his representatives, but there's still no direct outline as to what he's going to do with his contract. So, for me, the Christensen situation has been slightly more annoying. And of course, because he hasn't signed one deal yet, it's going to go into tier number 3. He's under threat. His position at Chelsea, if you don't sign a new deal, he's out the door in the summer, mate. We move into Kai Havertz. Now, this one is a big debate one, because at the weekend against Palace, he wasn't great again. He was poor. He didn't do enough. His decision-making was slow. Yeah, I don't think he was playing in his best position. I think both him and Pulisic could have looked and been like, well, why are we both playing here when we both could have been playing there? So, with Havertz, he's won Chelsea a Champions League with a goal. He's won Chelsea a Club World Cup final with a goal. We have to always relate to these things because at the end of the day, what we love about football and what defines a club and a player is what they've won. And Kai Havertz has managed to write his name in Chelsea folklore, which to me, and to Rio Ferdinand apparently too, is repayment of the £70 million that we spent. Do I think Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea know what the best thing to do with Havertz is right now? I don't think they do. So for that reason, I don't think we're ready to entirely build the team around Havertz yet because of the rest of the squad and still trying to figure out how we want to play going forward. But Kai Havertz, of course, isn't leaving. I think of all of the attackers, he's one that we can be pretty sure Chelsea won't be looking to sell this summer. So he's into tier number 2. Callum Hudson-Odoi, another player who, in moments, can be brilliant. He's created a lot of good chances for Chelsea, but the consistency of the finishing, of the crossing, isn't good enough. His inability to take players on and to become this explosive player that opposition defences are scared to play against, which is then when you start building in defensive errors, which, remember, when was the last time Chelsea kept forcing errors out of opposition defences? And the reason for that is because players like Hudson-Odoi, Christian Pulisic, don't run at defenders enough. Callum Hudson-Odoi, his position at Chelsea, in my opinion, is under threat. Because he's so young, because we know how good he can be, there's interest for Callum Hudson-Odoi from other big clubs. Chelsea could command a good fee, but I don't know if it's going to be best for him to stay or go at Chelsea. So I don't think it's exactly time to go yet, but we could see him leave in the summer as one of the attackers if Chelsea are looking to invest in other attacking players. We move into Rhys James, and I think you guys know immediately Rhys James is a player we've got to build this team around, whether it is right centre-back, but for me, he is absolutely one of the best in the world in the full-back, wing-back position. Going forward, Chelsea's game is going to dramatically improve, whether it is against Liverpool in the cup final at the weekend or if he returns against Luton in the FA Cup. We're not sure which one it's going to be yet. But when Rhys James is back in this Chelsea team, similar to that of Ben Chilwell, we immediately elevate. We immediately become a better side. Defensively, he's become solid. He's become less prone to errors because he's playing now at the highest level consistently. This injury set him back, but Rhys James is a player that Chelsea will build their future around. He goes in to tier number 1. Moving into Georginio was heavily a topic of conversation on my channel and other channels I appeared on last week. Georginio, because of all of the times that his agent's like, oh, he might go back to Italy. They want him here and it'd be a great move for him. He misses it. He loves a bit of Italy. Of course he does. Of course he bloody does. For that reason, and the fact that he hasn't extended his contract yet and it expires next year, I think Georginio's position at Chelsea is under threat. I think he's a very important player. He's a natural leader, penalty wizard, but still, Georginio, we can't say for sure that he's going to be a cornerstone of the Chelsea squad for next season and the seasons beyond. So Georgie goes into tier 3. N'Golo Kante. Now this is the interesting one in comparison to that of Georginio, because there are just as many reasons why we might question N'Golo Kante's role and position at Chelsea as there are reasons to do that for Georginio. Kante's contract expires in 2023. One reason to suggest he's under threat. Another reason that we're going to say is simply because of the injuries. He seems to be getting injured now more and more. It isn't necessarily a surprise because of the way that he plays, but will Chelsea this summer look at players like Declan Rice, Tchouaméni, other number 6s and think, well, Kante, Georginio, they're getting on, they haven't signed new deals, there are reasons for both players not to sign new deals, will N'Golo Kante be one to go? But when I look at both Georginio and Kante, I immediately sit there and think, well, I think Kante is more important when he's at his best than Georginio. So for that reason, I'm going to say Kante not leaving. I think he also loves Chelsea. We never see like flirtatious attempts to move to other clubs. He's very quiet. He's a very reserved bloke. And I think he could end up staying at Chelsea, maybe for the whole of his career. But with Kante, there isn't ever any of these little like, pick up here, pick up there, maybe move, maybe not. So I think if either of them will stay, it will be N'Golo Kante. So it goes into tier 2. We move into Matteo Kovach, and this one is interesting. Kovacic is obviously a bit younger. There isn't any current like worries immediately about new contracts being needed, new contracts being signed. And I think Kovacic has become Chelsea's most consistent and Chelsea's most important midfielder. This season, he started adding goals and assists to his game, which is massive. He's one of the best ball carriers at the club. And I think because of how solid we look with him in the team, I actually think that the order of importance of our 3 top midfielders right now has changed. And I think Kovach has become that number 1. I think he is the player who, when he's on the field and when he's not, we see the clearest difference between the quality and the consistency of the way we play. I put Kovacic in tier number 1. With all of these, of course, let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. But we move into Reuben Loftus-Cheek. For Reuben, it's simply a case of, I want to see this guy play football. I spoke about this with Matisse last week. Reuben Loftus-Cheek, on his day, is a phenomenal player. Since the injury, he struggled to make it back into the Chelsea first team. Because of the 3 players we just spoke about, it becomes harder and harder to see a consistent future in Chelsea's first team for Reuben. So as much as I love him, as much as I think he's a wonderful player, I've got to be rational with this one and think, well, he's going to want to play. He knows he's not first choice, so maybe it's time to go. I've put Reuben in category number 4, but I just hope that he can really kick on. If he gets a good run in the team again, we see the best from him, because as an individual, I bloody love the geezer. I think he's got everything, but we don't see it enough because he can't play because of the 3 players above him. We move into Lukaku. Now, this one, I'm not going to beat around the bush here because I've spent so long talking about Lukaku. I'm reading so much day in, day out, hour by hour on social platforms, on YouTube, on forums, on everything. And people are saying it's time for Lukaku to go. Certainly he's under threat. I don't think we can say now, get out. We're going to see what Chelsea do between now and the end of the season. If he comes good, then great. We've got a top quality striker at the club who we spent a bloody 100 million on, and we don't have to worry about fixing by selling and getting someone else in. But there's no doubt that after what we saw against Palace, what we've seen from his attitude since that interview and the bloody interview, there's no way of saying that Lukaku's position in the Chelsea squad is not under threat. I've spoke about this one so much, so we're going to move on to Marcos Alonso. Another one that's kind of sad, really, because there's either the wonderful Alonso or there's the damn right frustrating and annoying Alonso. And I think with the reluctance that we're seeing at the moment for Thomas Tuchel to even pick him in his own position, and we're putting a centre-back in left-back who's still so young in Malang Sarr, I think it's obvious that Chelsea will want to invest in another left-back this summer because they don't trust Alonso in either a back four, or we've seen from performances that even in a back three with wing-backs, he's just not got everything we need. So I think for Alonso, it could be time to go. I'm very grateful for all of the stuff he's done at Chelsea, for the trophies he's won, the influence he's had. But I think maybe, with all we're seeing now, it could be time for Marcus to move on. Edouard Bendy, this one's bloody obvious, isn't it? We build a team around this guy. The things that Mendy's done in football in the past year are mind-blowing. What the story Mendy has from almost not being able to continue as a professional footballer, wondering if that dream career was even feasible, was even possible, to now winning almost everything there is to win in a year, apart from the Premier League, FA Cup, League, whatever. He's won a bloody lot, hasn't he? Edouard Mendy, phenomenal. He goes into tier number 1, no doubts whatsoever. Moving in to Mason Mount. Mason Mount, for whatever reason, still comes under criticism from a lot of Chelsea fans, or there's a lot of fans who obviously know the ability Mason Mount has. He scores goals, he's contributing. Yes, he could still do more. He works incredibly hard for the team, and I think there is no denying that when Mason Mount plays for Chelsea, we're a better side than when he doesn't. And being a Chelsea boy, signing a new deal not so long ago, Mason Mount, I think, is a massive cornerstone for Chelsea's future. He moves into tier number 1. Moving into Christian Pulisic. Again, another frustrating one. People seem to think I don't like Pulisic. The reason I think people say this is because people get very hurt when I or anyone else actually slates or criticises a player that you love. I understand it. I get it. But when we look at the stats over the years, Pulisic's time at Chelsea, this is now his 3rd season, and it's got worse and worse and worse. We don't see him play in the right positions, but Thomas Tuchel, if he was a player that he really, really trusted and believed in, which I think he believes in everyone, but not enough to build a team around him. So there's no doubt for me that Pulisic is one of those players whose position in the squad is under threat. He's not offering enough at the moment when he plays because he's not being able to play in the right position that we can get the best out of him in. He's having to fill in to cover up for injuries and problems that Chelsea have had with the squad. But even when he plays in a forward position, it's still too inconsistent. So as much as I think Pulisic is one of the most naturally talented players in the Chelsea squad, I do think we could see him move on if the right offer was to come in and if Chelsea could see a suitable replacement. Moving into Tony Rudiger. It seems crazy for me to say this because he's not yet signed the new deal. We know that what Chelsea have offered and what Rudiger wants are still not quite matching in the middle. But if Rudiger does stay, and it's been absolutely reported many times, he wants to stay at Chelsea, you build the team around this guy. He doesn't drop out of the team. Rudiger is so important. Almost scored a worldie against Palace just 2 days ago as well. I will be delighted if Tony Rudiger signs that new Chelsea contract, and I think Thomas Tuchel will be over the moon as well. We move into Malang Sarr, a player who, at the beginning of the season, we thought might even be sold early. Surplus to requirements. How's he going to get into this team? But the one thing I love about Malang Sarr is he's become a very useful squad utility player for Chelsea because he's not just a decent centre-back, he's very quick, isn't afraid to get forward, make a tackle, try and make a good pass, but he can also play in that left-back role too. And I think we have seen a maturity from a young player, probably because he's playing alongside Rudiger and Silva, who are right at the top of the game. But I think Malang Sarr is a player Chelsea should be keeping hold of. He's starting to know what it is now to be a Chelsea player, to be involved in this squad, to be used in various positions if necessary, and I would keep him at the club. I think he's done very well. He's had a good season, so he goes into tier number 2. I don't think he's going to leave. Moving into Saul Niguez, this one's a sad one because Saul has progressively got a bit better when we've seen him in a Chelsea shirt, but again, similar to that of Reuben, there isn't enough data to go by to really back him that much. And it's been reported that Chelsea won't extend the loan deal because we're not going to spend the 40 million clause. It's not like Kovacic, where when we had that loan option to buy for Kova, he delivered and then we bought him. Saul hasn't delivered, so therefore Chelsea won't risk spending 40 million, because if we keep getting the same Saul that we've had this season so far, then we're not getting a 40 million player. It's as simple as that. Saul Niguez is going to go. Easy. Moving in to Thiago Silva. He's just extended his contract again to 2023. He's 37, and I think until there is either an injury that takes him out for a sustained period or he announces retirement, you build your team around a player like this. He is absolutely key in the dressing room. I love how he just does the simple things, and he does it so well. And I think that is a brilliant education for the youngsters around him, the likes of Malang Sarr, Rhys James, Trevor Chalobah. These guys can learn so much from a player like Thiago Silva. Delighted he's at the club. He's into tier number 1. We move into 2 more players. I think you guys know who it is. Hakeem Ziak and Timo Verna. We're going to begin with Timo Verna. And I'm not going to say it's time to go, because I love Timo Verna. This is the hardest thing that I think most Chelsea fans have regarding Verna. Such a likeable character. Is so good when he doesn't actually have the ball at his feet. His movement is fantastic. But his finishing's been poor. I think he's been very unlucky with some incredibly close calls with VAR, which would have stat padded him a lot more. But I also think that there is still a great player in there, but it's the same old conversation right now about Chelsea's attack. How do we utilise our players? What is the best system? What is the best combination? And I think obviously Timo Werner's under threat because, again, he's still got that pull from the Bundesliga where he was so prolific, clinical in the time in which he was there. And I still think there are a lot of teams that would love to have a Timo Werner because they could get the best out of him. I think there's too many players that we're trying to fit, and Werner just becomes a cog in that system where we don't really know if it's the right fit, piece of the jigsaw for what we're trying to achieve. So he goes in to number 3. Hakeem Ziak has been brilliant so far in 2022. He's currently the best performing player at Chelsea with recent performances. I think he's become indispensable to the starting 11 at the moment because he seems to be the only player who can really create chances, is now scoring goals, and has the vision to do things that nobody else in the squad can do. And I do believe that during a lot of the early phases of Ziak, where I was hypercritical of what he was doing, I didn't think it was going to work, I'm delighted to be proven wrong now. But at the same time, I did always say that there are some things that Ziak attempts that maybe the footballing brain of the other players in the squad aren't quite switched on enough to actually get involved with what he's trying to do. And things didn't work. Now I feel like his teammates understand what he's trying to do. And the reason I say he's become an indispensable member of the first 11 now is because he's delivering. B, if players around him can understand that kind of footballing brain that he has and those little things that opposition players don't know is coming, then Chelsea will continue to improve. And I think Hakeem Ziak is fundamental to that. But because of the rumours that there might be a move away for him, because of the constant chopping and changing of the attacking lineup from Tuchel, I'm going to put him in tier 2. I don't think he's going to be leaving, but I also think between now and the end of the season, there's a lot of football to be played, and the rumours about Ziak moving away will keep going, I think, the more he continues to perform, because big clubs are going to want him. There's still going to be big question marks about Chelsea have got too many attack-minded wingers. Who's going to stay? Who's going to go? Will new ones come in? So Ziak goes in to tier number 2. Been recording for 25 minutes. Normally the tier lists go on a bit longer, but I really enjoyed this one today. You guys can see on the graphic on the screen now, this is what I think is going to happen at the time of recording this. So if you're watching this in April, this could have changed dramatically. But as of right now, let me know your thoughts on all of the positions of the players in the comments down below. Thank you for all the love and support. Check out the news video from earlier today. And I'll see you tomorrow because it's Champions League knockout time. Little preview in the morning and the 6 things after the game. Come on, you Blues.